TSN Hockey Insider Darren Dreger joins us. Hello,
Dregs.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good.
Listen, we're dealing with some stuff over at Boom's Castle. What do you do with these woodpeckers?
Waking them up every morning.
I know you're an outdoorsy. I know you've dealt with stuff in your day.
Yeah.
But a woodpecker issue.
I'm going to regret acknowledging this. So I've got, I want to say a high-powered pellet gun, but that doesn't really make sense, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just, and I've got a chipmunk problem at the cabin. So I would put woodpeckers in the category of mice or rodents, and they're pests, right? I'm sure they do good things. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. But there's a line that's crossed every once in a while.
Well, Jack, I put the.
Let's put this.
This was from yesterday. This is my house.
Okay, and like, so that's a metal chimney. So how smart is this woodpecker?
This guy's an idiot.
And it is Dregs. It is so loud in the house.
Oh, I can
Every
imagine.
room.
I can imagine.
Because, like, yeah, okay. Let's see. Is it the furnace? It's not the air conditioner. It's not the hot water tank. Oh, what the hell? I'm gonna have to call Crystal Waters and figure this out. But every 30 seconds, there's like a. What is that? Let's try and play it. My daughter, I told the boys yesterday, my daughter's giving me shit.
She's moving out.
Dad,
Yeah, had enough.
what are we doing? Like, are we doing anything about this? Or is this just how it's like? And it happens every spring.
Yeah. I think you have to turn in your prairie card, buddy.
You
You
think
haven't
so?
dealt with that after.
Well, I've thought
years.
about it. I'm like, so which angle? If it happens to be that my aim is not pure,
Not that we would
Where's-
condone this. I
where is
understand what
the
you're saying.
least amount of
Damage.
potential damage?
You got to pack heat. That's what Dregs is saying without saying it.
You know, like they make these things now. It doesn't have to have gunpowder. It's a very safe implement. Would look after that issue now. But it kind of reminds me as I'm watching the video. So here in Southern Ontario, I mean, raccoons live everywhere, but do you guys have issues with them? They don't.
Zero
run
raccoons,
as much.
sir.
No.
Okay. So this is probably going back 3-4 years ago. I back out of my driveway and I look up and I've got like a hole the size of like a watermelon under the eave of one of the peaks of my house. And instantly I know what it is. Like, you can't believe how strong those little are. Like the fact that they could tear a hole in, what is it, soffit or whatever it is underneath there.
Yep.
So this is where it gets even more ridiculous. So automatically, okay, well, I got to deal with that, because if they nest in there, now you got a serious problem, because they have like 18 kittens or whatever they're called. And, now you got a family, right? Yeah. So I called this company called Ski-Daddle. I mean, it's a franchise, so they're probably all over the place. $5,000. What it cost to get. So hey, hold on. I mean, they dispose of the creature, so the raccoon gets dispatched or relocated. I think,
of course.
Yeah. Transport.
Yeah, exactly. But then they come in and they raccoon proof it. So they, did this meshing and all that stuff around every corner of the eave and the roof of my house. So they're never getting back in. But little bastard cost me $5,000.
Yeah.
And I know how I'd have dealt with him on the prairies.
And again, we will move on, because I'm guessing this is not why people tuned in. But
that's the good stuff.
I wonder if Ski-Daddle took a look at the call displays. D. Dreger.
Ooh. It's out of 0.
Well, there were about 7 houses on my street that got nailed in the same fashion. So it's a good business.
By the way, baby raccoon is called a kit. So the kits
wasn't
would be
far.
9 kits.
Okay.
What did I say? Kitten?
Yep.
Yeah.
Close. Yeah. Well, you were on there. You joined. You popped in as we were looking at the highlights from last night.
Yeah.
I mean, Montreal. It feels like we showed highlights in January on a Tuesday, and the horn goes for 2 minutes, and the crowd is off their rockers. Last night, John Cooper, Tampa. Hey, nice goal with under 2 left.
Bang.
Perfect. We're gonna get a point. What are we gonna do? We get the shootout list ready. Is his
going?
hand okay? Because we need to. Not a minute later, it's in the back of their net. They lose in regulation. Cole Caufield, 50 goals.
Slav 30.
There's just a feeling with that team sometimes.
Yeah, and Nick Suzuki, as a young leader, when he was named captain, I think many of us went, "Oof, that's a lot soon in a market like that," right?
Yeah.
But he has handled that role, and it hasn't negatively impacted his game even a little bit. I would submit the opposite, because he's so dialed in. And you look throughout that roster, and we don't have to go man by man. Demidov is going to be, he's a nice player now, but he has the potential to be a star. I was at the draft when Montreal took Slavkovsky first overall, and whether Shane Wright peered at the Montreal table or not, it doesn't matter. But it didn't shock anybody, but it certainly raised eyebrows. And, I remember at the time talking to hockey people there, and okay, like when Slavkovsky walked by me on the draft floor, without seeing this kid live, I watched him on video lots of times, but I'm like, holy smokes, this man is a horse at 18 years of age. Like, just that big Russian whatever arse on him, like just an absolute mule of a human being. I'm like, well, if they can develop this kid, he's going to be something else. And I mean, you're nowhere near the ceiling on Slavkovsky at this point. And
none of these guys.
30. No,
like Hudson, the goalies, obviously. There's more coming. Hage probably will make his debut.
The centerman.
Yeah.
Oliver Kapanen.
Yeah.
He got 20 goals. There was not a whole lot expected of him at this point.
Yeah. And so for me, they are exhibit A of a rebuild, and how, you do have to brace your fan base for the pain and the suffering, which they did initially, but they also didn't lollygag. Like, they drafted properly. They've developed slowly, but in the right way. Maybe the only flyer they took was putting Marty St. Louis on the bench, on an NHL bench as a head coach, coming out of minor hockey, for God's sake.
If it didn't work, they could have turned to a veteran right now, right? Like,
sure.
He's on his second contract right now.
Yeah. But Kent Hughes has openly talked about it. It was the hockey IQ, the intellect of Marty St. Louis, and the arrogance, the personality of the man who can handle that market in both languages, French and English. So it seems like everything they've touched to this point has worked out. But as we all know, the postseason's a different beast, completely different animal. So you get into that first round, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, they get their teeth kicked in. I doubt
they did a good job last year up against Washington, having sticking up for themselves anyway. Like, it was an entertaining series battling that one.
Yeah,
they got Anderson and Jacka. Like, there's some.
Oh, they got some
small forwards.
No, talking about fighting, but it's just they have had at least a taste of it.
And I'll tell you what, like I think it was Craig Berube who mentioned something to me. He wasn't critical of the defense of the Montreal Canadiens. This was maybe coming out of the rookie tournament or preseason, whatever it was. And he said, I wonder about the size of their defense. And they're mobile. They can skate pucks out of traffic and all that stuff. But are they physical enough to box out when the games get heavy? And I guess after watching them all season long, I would go, I don't think that matters. And maybe it does in a 7-game series when the bigger teams do find a way to the inside. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know the size of them, but you could commit to doing it too. Like, Jordan Leopold was not a big man.
Right. Yeah.
When we go to the finals, he's bad. You know what I mean? When you get all in and you dig in and you want it.
Yeah. Well, and Rhett, that's an excellent point. And I think, just to flip to Cole Caufield, I think you'd agree with this. Ray Ferraro made a distinction on the podcast recently where he said there's a difference between being short and being small.
Yep.
Cole Caufield is short, but he's not small. He does not play the game small. He doesn't, shy away from certain areas, based on his stance and lower body gravity, all of those things. Like, he can get into tough spots in the ice, and he can wiggle his way into position and get that shot away and all of those things. So again, I guess we're preaching to the same choir here, but I mean, I've been in that building often enough to still submit that Montreal is the church when it comes to celebration in the National Hockey League. There is nothing, nowhere better. Not in hockey. There just isn't. And I feel like that is a deep connection between the fan base, their knowledge of the game, and again, their connection to the player and what that player means to the game and what he means to the community. Like when Caufield scored 50 last night, I mean, you know, yeah, his dad's crying. I bet you half the building had tears in their eyes, you know, just because it's just such an abnormal place for milestones and high-end celebration. It just is.
I watched the HBO series last night, the Flyers one, and there are certain times where certain teams develop a certain chemistry with their community. Yep. We kind of had it in Florida.
Yeah. And when you win
typically when you win, that chemistry has an easier chance of building.
Yeah.
But it never leaves in Montreal.
Never.
And in some places you watch, like if the New York Yankees or whatever, it's okay, get over yourself. Like, like you get sick of it. Mm-hmm. It rings different for me in Montreal. It's like, no, you kind of deserve
it. Genuine and they love it.
Yeah. But I think as a player, as a coach, as management, Jeff Molson as an owner, you have to be wired for it, right? Because you have to be able to walk into a restaurant with your wife, with your family, and be okay with, you know, fans coming over and just saying hello. They're not going to mob you. You know, they're not. I've been there lots of times and I've watched it firsthand. You know, if you're on the street and you can take a quick pic or sign an autograph, all right, they know that comes with the territory. But there's a level of respect and appreciation in that fan base that it's tough to emulate. It is. It's just, I think it's just the history. That's what it is.
Can we rewind a bit? Because when the decision was made, when Bergevin left, they took a non-traditional route with Kent Hughes, who is an agent. We're seeing more of this, like Bill Zito's an agent. There's a few other guys that are surfacing. A lot of the candidates that we're now seeing for GM jobs have some agency background. And they also went to Jeff Gordon, who I think is criminally underrated given the tiny amount of work he did in Boston that turned that franchise around in like 6 months, but did a really good job in New York. Obviously, there's owner-GM dynamics, but that tandem, having the balls to say this is an Anglophone guy, we're going to put him with a guy that can't speak French. Like, talk to me about that model and if that should be maybe all these teams that, like the Leafs, like that are
and
looking
how much
for GMs.
credit should Bergevin get?
Yeah, some.
This young core is a lot of the new guys, but Bergevin did get to the final in that bubble year.
Yeah, and look, the owner, you know, again for knowing that in that market, it's hard to take it to the studs. And they more or less did that. More or less that's what they did. But Ryan, you're bang on. If I were an owner in the National Hockey League and I was going through what Toronto is embracing now, New Jersey, it feels like Nashville's been doing it for months now and can't seem to find their way in their process. I 100% would be looking at the model of the Montreal Canadiens and really, really, really looking at how that works. And it works because Jeff Gorton is a deeply experienced manager, right? So he did what he did in Boston. I think that he was grossly mistreated by the New York Rangers. Mm-hmm. I just do.
Oh, that was nasty. That
was just a volatile owner that was pissed off at everybody. Well, okay, John Davidson, you've got to go. Jeff Gorton, you've got to go. This guy, that, like, I mean, they just flushed in New York. Mm-hmm. But that made the Montreal Canadiens better and made them stronger. So here's why the dynamic works so well. So Jeff gets a little bit of the management juice because he's still on the phone and he's talking to managers and he's talking to presidents and he's talking to all those connections, you know, in the hockey community worldwide. But he also acts as that buffer, the go-between business and what management has to do. And that frees Kent Hughes to make sure that he is on top of everything. So, I mean, Kent Hughes, there isn't a general manager that knows that every deal is coming. But there wouldn't be many that Kent Hughes didn't have knowledge of. and maybe didn't participate in terms of seeing if there's the right fit for the Montreal Canadiens. When you have that luxury as a general manager where your sole focus is on the organization of your team and your American League and where your prospects are and all of that, and you're making sure that you're in daily communication with your amateur scouts, your pro scouts, and all your layers of hockey operations, that speaks to a level of success. And just to finish my thought and link it back to the Maple Leafs for a moment. So I think we misunderstood a little bit what Keith Pelley was talking about when he talked about having a data-driven management group. All right. Okay. Sonny Mehta is coming in for the interview from the Florida Panthers. He's an AGM in Florida, but he's their director of analytics for the Florida Panthers. That's what he is. But you're right to mention Bill Zito. Bill Zito, a lawyer. Bill Zito, a player agent. Bill Zito worked his way up through management of the Columbus Blue Jackets and now is surrounded by terrific people. But he is a razor sharp man. Likewise with Kent Hughes. So if I were in ownership, man, I'd be looking at guys like that were maybe looking for something fresh, a different challenge, something new, because there are very talented people out there available.
And so if you're an owner and it's like, okay, I'm going to get this highly touted president, I'm going to get this GM that's done phenomenal work. You've got two highly paid executives. Like, are we talking north of $10 million a year for those two? Because you mentioned ownership, and I think that's important. A lot of teams don't have the stomach for that.
No, they don't. And Seattle Kraken, I think, are Exhibit A, right? I mean, they had a Hall of Famer and Ronnie Francis overseeing their hockey operations with Jason Botterill as general manager. And it's pretty evident that they just decided that, okay, well, it feels like we're overlapping here and maybe we don't need that role anymore. So they amicably figure out, okay, what's the best way to cut bait? And that's what Toronto did with Brendan Shanahan. Granted, the Shanahan plan had lots of time to materialize and it just didn't work out. But I do think that you have that disconnect. You've got teams like Montreal that see the value in the two-headed monster of Gorton and Hughes and see how it's playing out. And then you've got other clubs that are maybe more concerned with counting their dollars and going, that might be a redundant voice in a redundant position. So let's maybe go a different direction. It's tough. I mean, desperation can make you do some strange things.
Flames rolled through Dallas a couple nights ago. It was the Wild and Stars. They're going to play round one. They played last night, and there was a little skirmish at the end. It was kind of more playful than anything else. But Miro Heiskanen leaves the game in, I think it was the first period, lower body. MRI today. It has the feeling of not good news for the Dallas Stars. Now, who's to say? Like you say, let the MRI come back. Let the doctors be the doctors. But Roope Hintz is hurt. Fax is hurt. And we've seen how much Heiskanen means to the Stars and what they are when he's not in the lineup.
No, he's so good. So good. And I remember having a conversation early in the year with Glenn Gulletson, and I said, is there a player with the Dallas Stars that you've been close around now through camp and whatnot, that either surprises you with the level of talent or might even be a little bit untapped still? And he instantly said Heiskanen. He's like, as good as he is, he can be and will be better. And there were little nuances and defensive details and things to his game that it doesn't matter that we talked about. But like all top defensemen, I mean, they touch every aspect of your game, right? So we'll have to wait to see what the imaging says, and then ultimately what the Dallas Stars are willing to disclose. But it is a ridiculous time of year to go through an injury bug like that when you're talking about the players, Boomer, that you just mentioned, right? Like, I think at Tampa Bay, you guys were talking about the Lightning a little bit before I jumped on. And, there's been some legit nagging stuff with Hagel, with Cirelli, with some other guys. You've got Victor Hedman, who's on personal leave, all that. But most of that is being managed by the organization, right? Those guys could probably play if they had to play. So it's load management because Tampa Bay recognizes that, hey, if we're not healthy, we're going to be in trouble trying to play the game that we need to play to win and to be successful. So there might be a bit of that in Dallas, but I think it's a little bit more severe as well.
I said it to the boys before because Dave Anderchuk was on in between periods in Buffalo last night, and I was watching that game, and he said when they won in Tampa Bay, the hockey gods got to want you to win. They have to align. And this is like with Dallas, Heiskanen's out. You get injuries here and there. Nothing matters. If the hockey gods don't want you winning, you're not winning.
No, it's true. And it's such a crappy time, but you can also appreciate it happens every year where in the last 5 games or so, players of significance go down. And you're right. It can potentially change the outcome and direction as you go into the postseason. But, I remember having a back and forth with somebody at head office of the National Hockey League around the Olympics. It was before the Olympics. And first half, there was a string of injuries. And I asked for some data on injuries, whether or not the league actually investigates injuries, and not whether or not players are injured, but the type of injury, like groin pulls, strains, all of the stuff that you can envision comes from having a condensed schedule. Yeah. And, they're not going to disclose any of that. But the feedback I got, and I laughed out loud, was, yes, we recognize that the injuries may be slightly up than previous years, but we don't believe, there's no evidence to show that any of these injuries are fatigue based. Come on. Like, what are we talking about here? I mean, they don't get to rest. They don't get to practice. They're playing every other night. Lots of back-to-backs. Like, come on. And none of it is fatigue based. So maybe
I would say if I was the schedule maker, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, maybe you get to this point in the season, and that's a big part of it too, right? Is the wear and tear, and maybe some of the mental fatigue. Maybe you put yourself in a bad spot where otherwise you might not.
How did Thomas Chabot play after having surgery on March 23rd? Yeah. I don't know how, because we talked about, so maybe it's like a hairline maybe it's a crack, some sort of thing, but he had surgery for it. So it's not just playing with a broken arm. There was a broken arm, surgery, and then playing. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I'm not here to dissect what surgery means. I mean, surgery is surgery, but I think what you're implying, Boomer, is, all right, well, there are varying degrees. Like if you're doing a, full, knee job, okay, well, that's different than having a knee scoped. But yet we would look at a scope, and does it fall under the description of having arthroscopic surgery? I guess. I don't quite know. And it is, but even the club, like the Ottawa Senators, acknowledged that it was fast, and it was surprising to have him available for that morning skate. I'm sure Travis Green and Steve Staios knew. I mean, you don't just walk onto the ice because you feel like you can take a morning skate. I mean, you've got to have medical clearance, and they would have been informed by all of it. But it's borderline magic, man. I'm sure we'll find out at the end of their season what specifically he had done. But whatever it is, he's still a quick healer. I think that's obvious.
Robots.
Yeah, sure. I just want to jump back to Seattle really quickly. I think 5 years in, they had the nice playoff win over Colorado. I think it was year 2. The Nichushkin thing happened in that series, one of multiple Nichushkin things. But it felt like, okay, it wasn't a blow your socks off expansion draft, but here they are. Look at this.
Yeah.
What's the plan there? They went and committed long-term to guys that are on the back 9 in Montour and Stevenson. They're going to be in decline. They don't have a young star yet. Beniers is nice. Mm-hmm. Are they just missing a blue chip kid in the draft? Because they have been awful for the last month. Probably the worst team in the NHL. They win last night. I'm looking at it right now. They're 1-5-1 in their last 7, and the stretch before that wasn't impressive. Where are you going? What are you doing? Because you've got this fan base, season ticket list, 20,000 deep. You're asking top dollar for everything. It's a bad team.
Yeah. Well, and again, maybe that speaks to the transition that they're making from Ron Francis to Jason Botterill. And, Botterill was given lots of room to be a general manager. It's not like Ronnie Francis was peering over his shoulder. But obviously ownership felt that his guidance, his leadership wasn't working. They needed a pound of flesh, and it comes in the way of Ron Francis. But to your point, it's going to be a tough offseason to add anything that matters, because when you look at free agency, there probably isn't going to be a lot there. I think most people believe that the guys who are pending free agents like Alex Tuch, likely going to sign, right? Likely going to stay in Buffalo. So what I think Seattle and what Jason Botterill will be looking at is some of the teams that are going through what Toronto is about to go through. Either a rebuild or a retool, whatever the word you want to use, and what pieces there might be available. But you're not looking for Matthias Michelli from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Right. You're looking for what are you going to do with Austin Matthews? Like, what are you doing with William Nylander if Nylander decides he's not in it for the that sort of thing? And I mean, it's not just Toronto. There'll be other teams in that mix, but that ownership group in Seattle, they're hungry, and they should be hungry. They've been in and around it long enough. And how many times can you watch what the Vegas Golden Knights do on an annual basis before you, I mean, we didn't handle the expansion draft, I guess, the way we should have, but there are other things we could have and should have done. So, I don't know if you listened to Todd Lewicki in his media availability yesterday. I give that man tons of credit, man. He cut right to the bone. He was not messing around. He was just like, yep, okay, we've had enough, and we're going in a different direction, and it starts right now. So
that's all fine and good, but that might be a long direction.
It could be
5 years out. You should be good now.
I was going to ask you, and I don't know, because I think they're boring to watch, to be quite honest. Who are they? And what's the cupboard like? Is like when you talk about Montreal, clearly they're playing very well, and it's Montreal, and it's a celebrated franchise. But when I hear Seattle,
it still feels like a collection of players who have come in and put on the same jersey.
I don't know who's on that team, and I don't even know who's coaching.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
maybe
Pinder mentioned Beniers. He's a nice player. I don't think that he's reached his top level yet by a long shot. Mm-hmm. And if Seattle isn't convinced of that, and he is potentially a piece that might fetch you something better, I mean, if I were a team again in that mode where I'm shipping players out, he'd be high on my list. I'd take a flyer on that kid, because they do have to start moving the deck chairs here. It can't constantly be about, all right, so yesterday it's Ron Francis, there's a coaching change, all of that. You at some point you got to recognize that the foundation of the roster just isn't good enough. Yeah. To Boomer's point, it's a lot of it is the same, and that's just not. I
think on the third coach too. Like
yeah.
Like if you said, "Here's new franchise, I'm the owner. Build me a plan to be good in 5 years." It's a disaster. They're bottom 5 in the league, and you're 5 years in. This is what you were building towards.
And you're looking not far away at a team like Utah, right? Yeah. Who was pulled from the ashes from Arizona, but I look at the work that Bill Armstrong and management have done there, and the influence of Ryan Smith, the ownership, and I could see Utah. They're a good team right now, but I can see that team getting really good in the not too distant future. And they, maybe to the point of Seattle, Utah has the assets to do something significant.
Yeah.
To pull in a real big piece. They do.
Just kind of last one for me. It just popped into my head when you mentioned Vegas, and I don't know. Torts comes in, first loss under Torts, so they're 4-1 now under Torts. He's only signed to the end of the season. Does that feel like a situation where he's back next year, or is that still very much dependent on how the rest of the season goes?
Yeah, the latter. It's dependent on how this season goes, and it's not unusual, but it is interesting. So he's essentially getting paid the Philadelphia money till the end of the year, right? So it's like he's paid for the balance of the year. He was getting paid. He was doing media. He was getting the same amount of money. So I give the man credit, right? He's back on an NHL bench. He clearly wants to still be an NHL coach. Well, how do you do that? You accept the invite from the Vegas Golden Knights, and you prove to Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee that you still have lots of fire in your belly, which he does, and you deserve a longer look. But they're not going to do that until the end of their year.
Did you have something else?
No, we could talk all day. There was lots of good games,
Send Boomer that catalog of air-powered weapons. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
No gunpowder.
Yeah, no gunpowder.
I'm just surprised that Tiny didn't have that cabin ship shape. The squirrels would have been worried for their lives.
Yeah. Well, And poor
Tiny's a lover, not a fighter.
Well, and she's gone deaf in the last like 2 months or so, like deaf. So her eyesight's good, but she's got to see it to react.
Or she's just sick of your shit.
Tiny, just like the other person in the house.
Yeah, my wife's
Yes,
deaf.
yeah.
I think the dog's going deaf. She doesn't listen at all anymore.
Yeah, there's 3 of us in this house, and apparently 2 are deaf. Yeah.
Have a good weekend, buddy. We'll talk to you.
Okay, enjoy the Masters, fellas.
Hey, all you dusters. Thanks for watching. Apparently, I'm supposed to tell you to hit like and subscribe. You sound like a real cheese ball.
Cheese ball.